Hello and welcome to another Captain's Table podcast. My name is Paul Berserker01 Batman Shelley, your humble host and space bartender at the Astropub, your professor on the Astro Historian, and your moderator here on the Captain's Table podcast. This is a Star Citizen podcast where we talk about Star Citizen lore, news, and more. We talk about everything from theory crafting to news to events in the community to latest updates. We've been around for about 9 years now. It'll be 10 years as of like April of next year. So we got we're about a year away from the full 10. So a decade, a long podcast.
24-hour Captain's Table
On that,
Marathon.
probably on. We'll do it for charity or something like that. So,
yeah. All
right. Well, we'll get started before we get to the topic and everything. Let me introduce the guests. I'm going to start with Mr. Tree 0311 himself. Who are you? What do you do in Star Citizen, and where can they find you?
The rumors of my demise were greatly exaggerated. I've been on a bit of a hiatus for the last couple months because I've transitioned to being pretty much a full-time dad, and been a lot of home stuff going on, so I haven't had any time for anything, much less podcasting and stuff. But I am one of the hosts of the Pathfinders podcast, along with Nazarus, who you've probably seen on the show many times. And so we're actually going to be having a show later on this evening, first time in a couple months, so looking forward to that. But I follow Star Citizen and Squadron 42's development in detail, do deep dives into feature and tech development, read the monthly reports, look at stuff like that. And hopefully going to be able to start to back into doing some gameplay streams again soon. Also do the, haven't done one in quite some time, but the Armchair Admirals and Generals podcast, would like to get that started back up, but time is never on your side.
Yeah. Don't I know that?
Don't I know?
I know that. And Mr. Andy, Mr. Radar Ranger, who are you? What do you do in Star Citizen? Where can they find you?
So my name is Andy Green. I am I often refer to myself as a self-professed Star Citizen uber nerd. I am the CEO of a company called MyRadar. We make a popular weather app here in the States. And the Star Citizen connection with that is that back in 2017, we did a little collaboration with CIG where you could browse the moons of Stanton in our app offline. And that was a lot of fun. I gave a presentation at the CitizenCon 2017. So if you wanted to go look it up on YouTube, you could see the video for that and kind of get some more of the gory details. We also, there it is. There's a picture of it right there, screenshot.
Yeah.
With an ad showing you that I'm not a paid customer.
Yeah.
That I'm too cheap to give you a free subscription. What else? I have to mention, because Darge makes me bring it up, that we launched a satellite in 2019 into orbit that had a Star Citizen logo on it. So that is the extent of my nerd cred for Star Citizen. You can find me in game as Radar Ranger, or you can find me at Blue Sky as A Green, I think is my name now.
Awesome. I got to remove the pre-show title on the Twitch stream. And last but not least, we have a returning guest. We rarely have people come back for twice because I try to space it out. But how could I say no to the Prince of Pluto and Emperor of Uranus, Mr. Darionator? Who are you? What do you do in Star Citizen? Where can they find you?
Oh, don't play like I didn't just pull my mod powers to be on the show. Twice in a week.
Well, you also had been mentioning multiple times over the week that there's some new news from JRDF, so I figured that was also a good time for that. So
yes. I am Darionator. I used to pretend that I do serious stuff in the Star Citizen community, but then I just gave up and do memes all day. But also, on a more serious note, I also am the chief designer at JRDF right now. Which is going through finalizing the transition period from Scotland to the US. So we now have a fully operational US distribution center and a fully operational EU distribution center, which is basically my garage. Hooray!
Yay!
Yes, and as Paul mentioned, something new happening on the 1st of April. That is, what, 2 days? 3 days? 2 days? One day.
Tuesday.
Two-
It's on
three.
Tuesday. Yeah, so 3 days.
Tuesday.
3 days.
Yes. We're finally launching the 1 to 100 Raven.
Which he built.
Not for pre-orders, not for anything else, just regular sale.
it.
If you go to jrdf.sc/Raven, you'll be able to get it. Not
Woo!
if you're in the EU though, just US only.
US only.
US only, yes, because that's where the production is. Currently, the printers are going like 24/7. So we got that going. So yes, finally, and I can finally focus on something new. Yay!
Yay!
And we will have a stream on the 12th on Twitch to talk about the Raven and about future projects as well. So
Sweet. Awesome.
that's what's been taking up my time recently, which is also shown in that today was the first time I played Star Citizen in like 2 months.
Your camera froze, so I just gotta refresh it real quick. Damn. Yeah. No, and I mean,
Andy's
it's,
dead.
and he's dead. He's just dead.
I'm dead?
Yep.
No, I hope not.
No, Darsh.
Yeah.
You said Andy.
Yeah. Can you hear me at least?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yes.
It just your
Okay.
camera's died for some reason, so we need to reset it.
Yeah.
We could draw
It
like a little
has.
stick figure in your screen.
Just put up a picture for Mop and Bucket with dark like a Darth Vader helmet.
Or I could just wait for someone else to talk and then fix my issues and then
yeah,
be good.
we'll go on to the next one. I'll just try to refresh your camera real quick. But let's go over the topic for today, because the topic for today is it actually was suggested by Andy, and I figured it would be a good topic because it's not just one thing, even though I'm sure many of you are going, what's agent smithing? Especially if you've been in the game for only the last 5 years or so. This is a very older concept, but it's not just talking about agent smithing. We're going to talk about agent smithing and removing friction from Star Citizen.
And we're all dating
These are tight.
ourselves for how old we are, because if you know what the actual reference is to, you're
Yeah.
like, oh, okay, then that means you're old enough to know about the Matrix and
Yeah.
that from the early 2000s, late 1990s.
Yes.
Dear God.
We are old. We have established that. At least me.
So, for those of you who don't know, the idea behind agent smithing is originally pitched as if you were on your Connie in the Terra system, and you've got a friend who's in Stanton, and you want them to come hang out, but it's like they don't want to have to travel all the way from Stanton to Terra, go through the jump point, go find you, meet up, and all that sort of thing. Then you could effectively give permission for your friend to take over control of an NPC on your ship. So if you had NPCs on your ship, you could basically let one of your friends take over or play as that NPC, and you can go off and have adventures and do other things like that. And then when you're done, they would just log out. That NPC would return to being an NPC, and you could go back to where your ship was, or your friend could go back to your ship was and play in Stanton and do the things they did. So no harm, no foul. The idea is that as the game expanded, it would be harder and harder to link up with players so that you could make sure that you could play together. And that time issue was a problem because CIG wanted to have that immersive experience, but they didn't want to artificially limit people from being able to play with each other, especially when they didn't have a huge amount of time. That was a big sort of sticking point in the early pitch career. Was the pitch of Star Citizen was they want an immersive sim, but they don't want an immersive sim that was so detailed that it removed the ability of players who would be older, because most of the audience was and still is older, who have more responsibilities, from engaging in the game as well. So this was one of those ways that they were going to remove the friction of playing together with other people to allow for people to hop in and hop out, do drop in, drop out, co-op, and that kind of stuff. So let's get started. I'll start with Darj on this one. On this topic itself. First of all, your thoughts on it, and generally speaking, Do you still like this idea, or not like this idea?
Generally speaking, yes, I do. Because I am one of those people that have recently gotten so involved in life that getting to play is becoming a chore. Like just today, I started the Wicklow mission. I couldn't finish it because I had to get ready for the
The podcast,
for
yeah.
the podcast. So yeah. So yeah, I would like a more a quicker way of getting in the game, and with boots on the ground. That's not Arena Commander or Star Marine, just because those kinds of repetitive gameplay sessions just don't attract me. How
Okay.
they're gonna go about that's anybody's guess. I'm pretty sure they will want to figure out, an immersive way of doing that
Okay.
somehow.
Somehow.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of a couple, but I'll give it a couple of minutes and give the other two a chance to answer.
I think I'll have us towards the end of the this section. We'll pitch some ideas that CIG can do to maybe
Yeah.
remove some friction to the game. What are things that can be removed?
Yeah.
Uh,
A lot of people even think that transit is friction. So
Yeah, sure.
how far do they wanna go with that?
And that's a
good question.
That's a good question we're going to have to answer as well. But Andy, since this was your major pitch as well, your thoughts on agent smithing in general, and do you think it's still a good idea?
Yeah. So I brought this up because of a gameplay night that I had with a couple of friends the other night. We, like a lot of people, I kind of took a little bit of a break while we were waiting for 4.1 to come out. But when it released, we all kind of got online. And what really hit me, and this is, I'm sure, a common experience that everybody else kind of goes through, is when I logged in, all of us there was about 8 of us, and we were all spread across the galaxy, or, the systems. And it took a little bit of time, as it usually does, to kind of get set up and then for everybody to meet. And I only had a limited time to play. I'm an old guy. I had to go to bed by 10:30 or so. So we all got in game and proceeded to get all of our gear and get, have us all arrive at the same station so we could all take off and do this mission. And it was a 90-minute endeavor. So it really kind of hit home and reinforced this idea. This has kind of been a persistent problem that everybody's been dealing with here for a while with Star Citizen. It's notoriously cumbersome to go through that setup phase to get engaged with your friends. And if this is going to be a good MMO, where you're really kind of greasing the wheels on that kind of gameplay, you have to make it a little bit easier. Really, the trick here is going to be finding the balance between making it too easy, but making it easy enough for people to want to play. If it becomes such a deterrent that you and your friends are like, I don't want to, it's going to take forever for us to go in there and get set up. I don't want to get in there tonight. That's obviously a downside for people playing the game. As far as agent smithing is concerned, I think it's a good idea, but yes, there have to be some caveats on it, I would think. I mean, I'm sure CIG, we were talking about it before the show, but they've been mulling it back and forth for a while now. And we were bringing up one Around the Verse episode, or whatever it was called at the time, where they were talking about it, how it was going to be a good idea. I'm sure there may be some gameplay blockers that might make it not, there might be some issues that they might have to work around to make sure that it doesn't become something that can be too easily abused. I brought it up once on a Reddit thread, and one of the first things that somebody brought up to me was this idea that you could go up towards an enemy territory and log out and come back in, and somebody could have a Polaris full of real players attack your ship right off the bat. And to be honest, you can kind of do that now, and I kind of posed that argument to him. You can all log out, exit the game, and then theoretically come back and attack things. But overall, I think it's, if they really want to make it easier for people to play in groups and have a rewarding experience, they're going to have to do something. to make it easier for everybody to get together.
Mhm.
In such a huge universe with those big travel times, you can understand why they want to have those travel times to make it, have some immersive risk versus reward gameplay. But they have to find some way to balance it out so you can still enjoy the gameplay and not spend all of your time, just getting from point A to point B.
Okay. Tree, same thoughts. Same question for you. Your thoughts on agent smithing? Still a good idea, and do you like it or not like it?
I'm very much for agent smithing, but I'm for it because I think it's one of those things where if CIG does it, they always talk about how when they develop things, they don't develop them in isolation, or the goal is to not develop them in isolation. And agent smithing is one solution to this problem of friction.
Mhm.
And CIG needs to have multiple solutions to this problem because there's different things that cause friction within the game that frustrate us, right?
And,
It
and
isn't
also
just
the solution for multiple problems, not
Yes.
just yeah.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, and so we can't just have agent smithing be the fix all for all these different issues with friction, but it's in terms of being able to group up together and be able to get together more quickly. I think it and um, offline fast travel are fast travel are a good solution that CIG could implement in order to allow us to be able to group up together in a more uh, time effective manner. Whether you go on the app or the website or whatever, and your character's at Orison, and you pay a fee in UEC that makes your character magically hop on a transport to wherever you want to be the next time you go play. And it takes a certain amount of out of game time and a certain amount of money. But it's no different than things would be in real life, right?
Mhm.
Mm.
But you're not having to do it in game. But that on top of agent smithing are two ways where in an ecosystem they can address this to allow us to have these options that work best for us. Because if you can agent smith, but okay, well, if you agent smith, then you're taking up a player's NPC character that the NPC crew that they've hired, and then that's a risk that player, your friend, is undertaking, allowing you to control that NPC that they are paying, that they have recruited, that is hinged on their reputation. All these different drawbacks to how you treat your NPC crew and such. Versus, okay, well, hey, we want to play here on Saturday, so everybody buys a freaking space plane ticket on Monday, and you arrive with your gear, with your character that you've been working on, versus agent smithing an NPC that doesn't have your like CIG called it skills. There's giving you agency to say, okay, well, I'm going to use this solution or this solution based off of what I want to do, what I want to accomplish, what risk I'm willing to undertake.
So it's not technically agent smithing because the agents all spawn in with all their gear on top of the player they've taken over. So
No,
Yeah, and
so I don't.
that's the thing
Yeah,
is, yeah, I don't
they
want
shouldn't
you to be able to just
no, they
teleport.
shouldn't. So that's why it's
yeah.
not. It shouldn't be. That's why agent smithing is not technically the
Right.
correct term for it. Yeah.
Yeah, you're assuming
Yeah,
their soul.
Well,
Yeah,
and like with
it's more
agent
like the
smithing, like
altered
in the
carbon
Matrix,
thing.
yeah, where I'm okay with agent smithing where somebody teleports into your NPC crew that you have hired, because
Mm.
and this is the bubble I'm going to pop for everybody and their mother, and I've done it before, and I'm going to do it again and keep doing it until people understand
What
this.
about the dog
That
and the horse they rode in on?
Yeah, that if we're going to have NPC crew, we're going to have a labor market, and that means that you're going to have to compete in a labor market for skilled labor. There's going to be costs, there's going to be reputation, there's going to be availability. It isn't going to be, oh, as long as you have the money, everybody can have infinite amount of high tier NPCs. No. That's not how labor markets work. That's not how management works. None of that. None of these things are in any way, shape, or form how COG will do it. And so there's not going to be a no cost way to having a NPC crew that you can then without consequence have your player character your player friends take over, and then just, oh, okay, well, I saved your life
Well,
if I jumped on this grenade, but now Robert is, lost the entire regen. You know, there's a whole lot of things where there's could be cost benefit, risk versus reward of this.
So there's got to be a sync, is what you're saying, for being able to do it.
Yeah, there's got to be a sync. It's got to be, the balance points, and it should be one of those things where, players should decide, do I want to, send my character, on Tuesday, here so that I can play with my friends on Friday with my gear and my character that I've been working on, or do I want to Agent Smith into their NPC, and do I want to take over their low tier NPC who's cheap and replaceable, or do I want to take over their high tier NPC that, well, maybe I don't want you to take him over. He's a really good engineer and you suck.
Mhm.
We got to cover that idea that you brought up. You just touched on about the scheduling in advance to arrive someplace, like offline travel, I think is what you're getting at. But there's one thing I need to bring up since we're still talking about agent smithing. I say two things that we need to bring up.
Okay.
First and foremost, we know right now we don't have NPC players in the game.
True.
Number one, they said that they're not even going to be available for 1.0.
For 1.0, yeah.
And the other thing is, we don't even know like how you if you did have, there's challenges with having NPC crew because we haven't really come up with a clever way on how you might give them instruction. Like when we play with our friends, we just talk over Discord and we say target this guy, whatever. How are you going to do that in an effective manner in a real-time engagement with AI characters?
Go play Colony Sims.
Yeah.
If you want to
But so
understand what they were
here's-
getting at when they were talking about it, go play Colony Management Sims, and
Here's
you'll
the
see
other
what
thing.
they're
If
getting at.
you're fighting, if you're in a ship, you're in a fighter ship or whatever, and you're targeting a Polaris that is crewed by NPCs and they're probably not doing that great or something like that, and you're kicking their butt, and then suddenly he has all of his friends, Agent Smith, into those NPCs, and now they've become super Polaris and they're kicking your butt. Is that fair?
That's a good question.
I don't know if I have an answer to it, but that's a question that a lot of people ask.
So so we won't have NPC crew in 1.0. What we will have is crafting. So potentially there could be like a recipe for a human-shaped robot or android that you could control
Remote control.
like a drone. Yeah, something that would hook into the the instant communication that happens for region.
Yeah.
Right. Because right now there is some sort of B plot that are going that region is failing and stuff like that. So there's more development and more research being done into that. So that could be a potential hook into that. But that would also mean that if you wanted, this agent smithing, you would need certain resources and you would need a crafting crafting machine that's capable of creating those things, and that would create some sort of gameplay loop in advance, and then that would sort of without the
It
need
sounds
for
like NPCs with
crew.
extra work.
It is.
Yes,
The difference would be that, and what Darj is trying to propose, I think, is that a
before actual NPC crews.
an android that you can remote into and control is not an android that can operate autonomously on its own and do things like
because that is also it would basically just be a shell that's waiting to be populated by another player. Yeah,
An empty Ibrahim body.
Yeah, basically.
yeah, could, yeah.
So why I found this conversation interesting is that it's one of those older conversations that we don't see a lot anymore, because it was an old time when CIG was still saying things like Tavar and Kung Fu and stuff like that, where it was just sort of things that CIG would say because they were looking for cool ideas and interesting concepts of how to make this game unique and different. Or like spitballing ideas of how to fix a problem that they anticipated would happen in the future. But now with CIG focusing on the big thing, I think, is tier 0 item recovery is a good example of what CIG is moving towards with this sort of removing friction, because it's not just a solution, as Tree, I think, was saying. It's not a solution to one problem. It's a solution to 2 to 3 problems with one system. It is item insurance. It is retrieval of your subscriber gear, And it's also the thing that people have been asking for a lot, actually, which is outfits, being able to set an outfit and then repurchase and re-gear those outfits so you can always have that outfit ready to go. They basically just said, let's smash all these things into one concept and put it out there. And with that, I think is a good example of going forward, CIG is likely going to start to be looking at systemic solutions to gameplay problems and systemic solutions that are already available. Not creating a new system, not building a brand new back-end support for it, simply looking what they have now and how can they use what they have now to solve the issues rather than having to build a brand new bespoke gameplay loop that will only be used for one thing, and that's it. Because CIG hates bespoke. So.
Oh yeah, everything needs to be systemic.
This is why they made their own special star engine, because they hate bespoke.
Wow.
Yeah. Well,
ironically, making special star engine allows them to make tools that they don't have to rely on just other tools that other people create. They can create tools that can solve a lot of those problems. Go ahead.
I just to your point, you're absolutely right. By being able to just take advantage of systems that they already have in the game without having to reinvent the wheel, they can make small adjustments to kind of help reduce that friction. And you're right, the tier 0 and keeping your equipment is one of them. There are a bunch of MMOs that kind of take that same approach. So like right now with tier 0, everything you're equipped with, you don't lose. The only thing you are at risk of losing is the stuff that's in your backpack. You still have the same processor where you can go back to your body and rescue it. But your goodies that are equipped, those are safe. And to be honest, there's a lot of other MMOs that are kind of taking that path, because a lot of the MMOs that have come before them have, revealed and surfaced this problem of, people getting discouraged and quitting because they just lost everything that they spent all this effort building up. And, it's a very demoralizing defeat to suffer, to lose all that. It makes you want to leave, and that's not conducive to long-term gameplay. So like Ashes of Creation is an example of that, where if you get killed, you keep all the stuff that you had, all your gear that was equipped, but you do lose what they call materials, which were things that you kind of craft and build with. And that's essentially what CIG is doing right now with stuff in your backpacks. But in doing that, they don't have to invent a whole new system. They're really just fixing your gear that you have stuck on you.
Yeah. Because there's already a system, like when you respawn, they have to go through a checklist of what you're respawning with. And, before that, it was just, the hospital gown. But now they just go through, and check off other items. So it's not a complete change of the systems. Yeah.
And I think
She was going to say something.
Go ahead, Tree.
Oh, it's just the tier 0 is obviously quite clearly a tier 0, and this is just to reduce friction in the short term until they have the better system in the long term that is more immersive, that has actual consequence, and they'll iterate it, going forward. But it's just a band-aid fix, but it's in terms of the item recovery tier 0 is a different problem than what agent smithing is intended to sort of address, because agent smithing and like an offline type fast travel, it would be what allows you to get together in a more efficient manner in the first place, whereas item recovery is something that removes one point of multiple points of friction in terms of getting back into the action in a timely manner. Because right now, if you die on a random moon in Stanton, and then you respawn at a hospital above a landing, a clinic above a landing zone, or you didn't move your imprint from the landing zone, you have that point of friction, and that's a different point. And if you don't have to go and get your gear and and that's the thing, is it's kind of lazy, because if you all it's doing is skipping you going to okay, you didn't buy 10 sets of this and put it in your inventory, so it's not a huge time savings, if any. The only thing it changes really is if it encourages you to make sure that you use a medical ship in order to set your respawn nearby and bring that with you. And so,
Yeah.
like with this coming in, you're going to see, way more of C8Rs and Cutlass Reds running around, even
Terrapins.
more than
Yeah.
we did
Yeah.
before. Yeah, because people were doing that already, and putting in the inventory, 10 sets of their preferred equipment or whatever
Yeah.
they don't mind losing. All this does is allow you to use your subscriber gear without losing it. Hopefully,
Yep.
unless
Yeah.
Yeah, but
other
not
bugs.
just subscriber gear, like gear that is rare to procure
or
Rare
because
to
it is
acquire. Yeah.
at a single shop at the opposite side of the system. So what are you going to do?
Or
Travel 60 gigameters,
you can only
just to get
Yep.
another.
or you could
Yeah,
only find it like a CZ or something like that. Like there's some
Right.
places where you can
Yeah.
only find like
Yeah.
today I was playing and I pulled out my Neoni helmet, which is the like the Defiance helmet that has like the old Oni style like teeth and holographic. And people in chat were like, "How much you want for that?" Like I want that because I lost mine before the patch, and I want it. And it's like, yeah, because it's a rare item, and I was wearing because it's like, oh yeah, because I don't care if I lose it because it sucked to me now if I lose it. So
So
It
there's
mitigates one small point of friction, but
mhm.
Yeah.
I think that with what CIG has available to them, and shameless plug, and sorry, you're just gonna have to
Go for it.
Um, but I did a video on this because CIG has all the ingredients and all the lore to back it up in order to do a much better job of mitigating this point of friction in a much more cohesive and coherent way. And I just dropped the link to the video in chat. But instead of you always dying and ending up back at a clinic, we should have NPC trauma teams in order to give you multiple options to get back into the action, either more quickly, but with consequences and choice and stuff. And this is
That's if
all
you're
with
solo.
stuff that, but
That's if you're solo. Like
works.
if you're the
Yeah.
reason, and I just interjecting real quick because if you play with a player, other players, they'll come up and double tap you and make sure you're dead so you can't come back. So a
Yeah.
trauma team wouldn't really help in that point.
Yeah.
But that's the thing is, even with that, we shouldn't be and most people don't realize this, but this has been since the very beginning, and CIG's reiterated it over and over again. Your character will be like your ship, and the amount the how frequently you actually full big die is meant to essentially mirror how often they want your ship to go big, bada boom, not be recoverable. They don't want your character to be full, the big die. If you're Galaxy's Edge, anyone?
Yeah.
Not the Star Wars one. Kick. Anyone in chat?
I got it.
But they don't want. Yeah, this is 30th century UEE. The likelihood of you doing the big die and going all the way dead and full on regen, that's supposed to be less. And you're supposed to be running around in this armor and stuff. And yeah, you are going to be down, knocked unconscious, go into shock and all that. But that's part of the whole medical gameplay bit, is that they want your character to be as repairable as your ship is, to be almost blew up, but we can bring you back.
And there should be a lot less of dying and respawning and going in guns blazing and dying and respawning.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Because
that's
that
like
is
one of the
some
biggest points of
gameplay that a
friction.
lot of people want.
The thing is,
It's
you know what you
it's
have to
gameplay,
do
but it's also NPC systems.
Yeah.
in a conflict. You have to have a point where it ends.
Yes.
So the reason why I say that is if you literally could just respawn every time you died, it's like, when do you declare victory? If you can,
but that's how the
constantly just
medical
sending people back to
system
the
is supposed to
battlefield.
work. Is
Yeah.
if you take a low there's this curve, and if you take a low tier if you take a low tier injury, the chances of you taking a higher tier injury go at all scales like that. And so you only have so many times where you can be and this isn't just dying, but it gets you to the point where, okay, I can't be someone can't just inject me with packed red synthetic blood cells and bring me back to awake. I have to go back to a hospital now, otherwise I will full on die. I won't be able to even stand up. You'll make me awake and I can crawl, but that's all I can do. And then the player just has to decide for that. But instead of right now, that it doesn't work very well. We still insta die way too easily.
Yeah.
And it's a matter of them pulling the levers and working on these algorithms that they have in order to make it so that way you don't insta die and you can be gotten back up. but it's a matter of player choice. Do you want to get, picked back up, and be back in this fight, or do you want to get evac'd back to a hospital? Like, all of this mirrors exactly how things are in real life, and that's how CIG has been designing it from day one. And because it not only is it allow for gameplay, which they've sold since day one, but it allows them to use what they're building to remove points of friction to allow for people to play together.
Hmm.
I
Rather
think the
than
trick here that you got to state is it's to reduce friction and not remove friction.
Friction.
If you remove the
Yeah.
friction all entirely, then you remove the
Mhm.
challenge as well. And
Well,
that's
yeah,
not a good winning solution.
That's my next question, because there's another thing that I have heard about, and you already brought it up, Tree, so it's perfect about this one, that would remove friction, and not remove friction or reduce the friction, is the idea of NPC services. So your ship is destroyed or it takes damage too much so you can't take off and you're stuck on the ground. Maybe you go down to do a bunker mission and you took damage and you're able to like land your ship, but your thrusters are shot. You can't get them back. Right now, if something like that were to happen, you would either need to call for someone to tow your ship back to a location, without just, backspacing your way back to wherever you need to go. You need to call your ship back to a location, or either tow your ship back to a location, or someone pick you up and you abandon your ship and leave. And that requires other players. And we've known that CIG has at least ideas of having NPCs be able to, pick you up when you're down, pick you up when you're injured.
they do
or
it for
like
each other
Yeah.
right now already.
Yeah.
And so it's a behavior that they've been working on. It's been in the monthly reports recently.
Yeah.
It's part of Squadron 42. It's something they need to bring into Star Citizen, because they should be able to either spawn closet or NPC reinforcement a medical team to get you back up if you so choose, or to evac you if you so choose. And
But I mean, it's
Yeah.
more than just that. It's also refueling, repairing, rearming, transporting, all of these things. And now I can see the argument against that, because the argument against that is this game is supposed to have players pull them together so that they can
Bingo.
interact with each other.
If you
play with
provide
each other.
if you provide an artificial solution, you take away the player solution.
Yeah.
Yeah, you make it
However,
too easy for
I did bring up part of that in the video, but that's part of dynamic server hashing and higher player counts, is because having more players in a system and higher player concentrations allows you to say, okay, you can either pick an NPC that will do this, or there's a player that can be here in a couple minutes and they'll do it for this much, and CIG can artificially adjust what the cost is and what services are available. Because you might have an NPC that only has a tier 3 bed on their Cutlass Red, and they can't handle your injuries, and all they can do is magic you back to the station clinic. But you can have a player that will be there a minute or two later with their tier 1 bed, tier 2 bed, that can get you healed up on the spot, and you can get back to doing the mission you wanted to, and now you've reduced a point of friction. But it's up to the player. How much do you want to pay?
And I think it's
And
also,
do you want to wait 3 minutes or 1 minute?
I also think there's a time factor. Like, you can also say, because there's also a couple things. First of all, with that sort of solution can happen, but you need to have some massive downsides. Like, if you are relying on an NPC to pick you up, it should cost you more, or it should take more time, like a stupid amount of time. And I think that's where people, like, the solution is there, that it's like, hey, you're injured and you need to get picked up. An NPC can come pick you up in 15 minutes.
And so, The Prisoner, I see you in chat.
Yeah.
The maps are not too huge. That's why we had the new quantum travel system coming in.
Yeah.
Again, this is one of those things where none of this is in isolation. A player space ambulance, or even faked if it's an NPC space ambulance, because they don't have to actually physically move around. They can spawn it, out of view. But an NPC, a player space ambulance with the new quantum travel system would get your beacon and be able to quantum boost there and be within a 1 minute of a normal SCM speed flight time to you in a fraction of what it would take to do right now. And that on top of, hey, we've got 600 players across two systems. No, now we have 6,000 players across two systems, or whatever. it greatly increases the density of players available to do it, but it also reduces the response time because of a gameplay system that they're building, and we're very near to having right now.
Yeah.
Um,
These aren't
so-
like pie in the sky ideas. These are ideas that CIG is already sort of playing around with internally at certain points.
and it's all
Good.
algorithms
and I
stuff that they can
predict-
do based off of the lore.
Yeah.
Your wait time in Pyro could be longer because you're waiting for
or impossible.
a medical. Yeah,
It's Pyro. Ain't nobody there calling come and help you. Sorry, unless you got a good reputation.
But that's the thing is right now in real life there are private military entities
Yes.
that will provide this sort of medical support to fucking Somalia.
Yeah.
And all these far-flung, dangerous-ass places, and they will come get you,
Mhm.
and they will provide the top-tier medical care. It costs you a fortune.
Yeah.
But there's freaking billionaires and non-governmental organizations that pay for this.
There's straight
in
up
order to have
hostage
these
rescue
services.
teams to do those sorts of things.
Yeah,
And
It's
I
a thing.
predict like once all this is in, like we have both NPC and player medical rescue teams, there will be a section of the community that will not like that,
Yeah, that's what I was saying.
and
Probably
just
the
like
medical
in real
people players.
yeah, and just like in real life, in a combat situation, if you go after the medical, you are the lowest of the low, right? So it's one of the few things like in the Geneva Convention that is classified as a war crime.
Yeah.
I think the big problem with having these NPC solutions is that how do you find the balance? I think it's a bigger challenge to find the balance between having those NPC solutions yet not taking away the gameplay options from real players. Like at what point do you draw that line? No matter where you are, when do you have an NPC team come and do it versus a player, a real player?
Mhm.
And that's
How do you keep from detracting from their gameplay?
long term, this is something that StarSim has to balance, because
Yeah.
if you are a player that is doing this and there's 500 across our 5 systems of 1.0, they'll balance, okay, well, how many NPCs do we need to have doing it in order to maintain theoretical coverage, and they can despawn and spawn based off of how many are doing it. But in the short term, they could have this a tier 0 version of this where NPCs come out of spawn closets and NPCs come out of Cutlass Reds that spawned up here and then landed, and then the team comes over there and they run over and then get you up. That's a tier 0 equivalent of this, and it doesn't remove all the friction. It removes some of the friction. It doesn't fix the problem entirely, but at the item recovery tier 0, it could allow a big a lot of it removes a part of the friction that gets CIG it's a lot of headache removed with little effort that is along the lines of where they're going.
Yeah.
Big bang for buck, but it gets them going in the right direction where they seem to want to be going, but it's one step out of many, because there's other systems that have to come into make it all
I gotta play devil's advocate again and ask this part though. The end result of an MMO and people's ability to enjoy it does have to include some kind of risk versus reward, which is something that CIG has been very big on touting lately. How do you balance the risk versus reward equation if you know that you can go to some remote planet and take risks and not plan ahead and not prepare and not have friends with you, or not do the things that CIG is trying to challenge you with the game? If you know that you can just go out there and you die because you did something stupid and you have some NPC come out and get you, at what point do you cross the line and make it no longer a challenge to the point where people are taking risks and doing crazy things because they know they always have an out?
Part of it's the injury system, but also reputation, and then just cost.
Yeah,
You know,
if you turn out to be like this huge risk taker that you get like all these medical NPCs coming bail you out like twice a day, your price is gonna, they'll still do it, but every time the price is gonna go up just because you're such a burden on them and they could be
dystopian
helping
healthcare.
people. Mm.
So it's risk. The risk is coin, essentially.
And it could be more than just coin, because there's lots of other factors. Like, for instance, what if you call in a medical rescue team for NPC at rescue team in an area that's a hot zone, and they send in a ship and it gets destroyed? What happens to you? What happens to your reputation? You may just they may not be able to call in for you again.
Yeah.
And then
there is a possibility of you becoming a persona non grata for a certain medical medical team. Like, there should be different like organizations that have in terms of, for when it comes to medical, it's not a done thing to deny healthcare, but I guess also in a system where where you just respawn, I guess that can be seen as a sort of like a lower priority, because reputation and contracts need to be specifically set out. Like, okay, you have one organization that will come rescue you no matter what, but their prices are going to keep going up. But there will be some that will just say, no, we're not treating you anymore just because you are too much of a risk factor. So
was it Along Came Polly? Is that remember where Ben Stiller was like the risk mitigation guy or risk analyst for insurance and everything? And if
I don't like the direction that is going, because it goes away from European medical to American medical.
Well, I will tell you.
So,
I will tell you this, Darj. Welcome to the American medical system. It sucks here. And Star Citizen is heavily going to be based off of that.
Yeah, Star Citizen is a dystopia, but it also allows for a lot of variety within the systems of Star Citizen, because you're going to have different levels of care and different costs associated with it, different levels of availability based off where you are. Like Paul and I have talked about this before, just because we have lore about the different hospitals within just the Stanton system. They vary, as well as the different healthcare organizations, and the fact that we do have Empire, whatchamacallit, but and not to get too far away from the reducing friction part, but this is just one part of reducing friction. If every time you get downed, if you're not with another player, you end up back at the clinic, that's a huge point of friction, because even with the new quantum travel system, that there's still large distances, and there's still going to be a lot of setup. Whereas if it's still going to take you, if you wake up at whatever station in Pyro and you have to get back to a ship, and put your gear on, even if it's item recovery or whatever, and then fly back, even with the new quantum travel and all that stuff, that's still a huge point of friction. That's going to steer people away. But if you don't end up back in that hospital bed, 100% of the time, you only end up back in that hospital bed if you keep pushing too far, and you reduce that number by a lot. That's a lot more people playing the game a lot more, and getting a lot more done, and having a lot better satisfaction, but also doing a lot more to incorporate gameplay to prevent that situation that caused them to be in that clinic in the first place. And so the whole item recovery thing becomes a much less impactful issue if you didn't lose it in the first place, because you didn't go all the way down and you didn't get taken all the way back to the clinic, to begin with.
I think that's less of a friction, but I think that's more of the direction they're going with gameplay. And I'm going to propose a solution to not this problem, but to the agent smithing problem, because feel free to. I think what we'll do is I'll go Tree and then Radar and then Darj in terms of like solutions to frictions. And one of the thing that I can see, it could be to any solution, but the solution I have to agent smithing comes from a source that CIG is already pulling from, which is extraction shooters in Tarkov. There's a thing you can do in Tarkov. It's been a while since I played it, so excuse me, those of you who are hardcore veterans of this. I think it's called being a scav. where you can run out basically as an NPC. It's effectively you play as an NPC. You have a basic setup, and the thing about the advantage of it is if you complete or if you manage to extract with the stuff that you have as a scav, then you get to keep that for your main character. And so there's less of a risk playing as a scav as there is playing as like a regular player. But you don't have a lot of choice. You don't get to like come out with like a fully kitted up gear and stuff like that. You have basic gear and you go out and do those sorts of things. And one of the things that a lot of people have asked about, and this is one of those things that solves two problems at once, is a lot of people want a hardcore system. They want hardcore Star Citizen where they start with nothing and work their way up. They start off with no ship. They just start off with a vehicle or, start off with some clothes, maybe some basic gear, and then work their way.
Just the sperm suit, yeah.
Yeah, just the sperm suit or stuff. So having a system like a scav system where you can go, here are some templates of NPCs who you can play as. You can play as these people, and these are the locations you can play at. And then go. That solves a solution for hardcore players, but it also solves the solution for NPC, like for agent smithing. Because you can say, hey, you're in Castra, why don't I just create a, generic character, this generic, hardcore character, and I'll have them stay at the station, and you can just fly your ship up, and then I'll just use this hardcore character that I could just throw away at the end of the day and reset if I want to. That doesn't have any benefits. It's just a dude. It's just a NPC, and you can then play as that character with your friend, and then at the end of the day, you can go, all right, I can just erase this guy and try it again, do something else. Or for other players, they can continue to play that character and try to work their way up as sort of a hardcore version
but
of
it's
the game.
just a separate game package.
It's basically a separate game package, but the idea being that you could reset it. So you could just say, when you're done with it, you can reset it, and you can respawn it. You can take a completely different, none of the money, none of the experience, none of the, because of the skill system that CIG wants to put in, that none of that would transfer over to the next area. It would just be a solution, but it would still allow for people to do hardcore experiences in the game, and then also do that pure 0 to hero experience, and also use that as just a pick up and play with friends sort of thing.
So wait, don't make fun of me because I haven't played Tarkov. Is Tarkov actually an MMO, or is it?
It kind of
like
straddles the idea. You do have persistence.
Yeah, multiplayer extraction multiplayer extraction shooter.
So there are like multiple maps you can play on, and you take a character in, and you can complete objectives or acquire gear and other things.
Do you progress? Do you get levels?
Not really levels. You get
not levels. Yeah, it's not an RPG. Like
okay,
but you can get
the
gear.
reason why I'm asking is because I'm trying to see how that concept meshes with what Star Citizen is trying to accomplish with the concept of a growing living universe. I don't know. I don't know. I don't understand it enough. I was just trying to see if I could put it together in my head. But
so the idea of a scav is that playing as a scav, and again, this is from somebody who's only played a little bit of Tarkov, not a ton of it. So chat can correct me if I'm wrong, and if you're watching this after the fact, please correct me if I'm wrong in the comments. Is effectively low risk, low reward. You do not get. You could if you extract the stuff with a scav, you get the stuff that the scav extracted with, but you don't start with any gear that's really good. So you're going to be outclassed by players who already have better gear. So if you run into a player, they can kill you really easily, and you're not. It's going to be a lot harder for you to achieve your goal. But if you die, you don't lose anything. But if you die as in your regular player, you lose stuff. You lose your gear. You can lose some sections. There is gear insurance you can get so that you can get it back, but it's not guaranteed, and it requires like them to not loot you for a certain amount of time and all sorts of things. So it's more of a like you have to use the gear because the good gear will give you an advantage in combat, but it's not necessarily if you lose that gear, then it's gone. Good gear is things that people want to use. So that's the idea behind.
Equivalent of that could be like taking over what did Tony call
a quantum? A quantum?
Yes, taking over a quantum guy.
Yeah, effectively. Like that. Yeah, basically taking over like the virtual NPC and taking over virtual NPC and then being able to jump in and out of a virtual NPC. So this wouldn't require you to hire an NPC crew member, but it would still give you the option of bringing somebody on board the ship. So I thought it was that because I've heard that many times before of people wanting kind of that hardcore player, but they've also thought, well, if you're going to get a hardcore system, why don't you set up a system that can both function? Because you shouldn't just set up a hardcore system that's just a hardcore system for the sake of it. Because I don't think CIG will ever sell a package that's like $5 and you start with nothing, because that doesn't seem like it's a good idea. But giving players the option to play as a hardcore player and then giving them respawn locations in specific locations would allow for more variety.
I mentioned while you were streaming before, they could, have you present you with a list of loadout archetypes like they introduced at CitizenCon. So you could just, I want to spawn in as a pilot or, the driver or, a heavy. But, you just get random gear that's associated with that archetype. Maybe a couple of bonus items, just like NPCs would when you loot them. But other than that, you're not tied to a global inventory or a personal inventory. And when you log out, I suppose if you persistently log back into the same Scout Citizen, you would maintain what you looted. But
that's what I'm
doing
saying.
That for like instance content, and that way it limits in some way the rewards you get from doing that content, because your character isn't actually there. Your main character is over in Vega, and you want to do the instance content in ArtCore. But that way you don't have to travel. You can go do the content.
You can't send the money you earn or anything else out there. It's locked to your character.
That's something I wanted to. How do you make the distinction between a regular player and a scav? Like you earn the money that you with the scav. What prevents you from just sending that money to your main character?
You just don't.
Or maybe you get the money, but you don't get anything that you looted. Because it's a scav.
Well, you don't get the stuff that you looted. But the money. Well, I suppose.
The idea is, or you could just have a high penalty, like the tax is higher when you use that sort of system. So it's just
you could just make it so you can't transfer the money, but
that too. I mean,
what would be an in-law reason that you can't transfer the money?
Because
some of the missions are gonna start paying a lot of money.
You have to break lore on some.
Well, I mean, the idea could easily just be something to the effect of you don't have access to that system. You don't
have a citizen code, so you don't have a banking transaction
I
capability.
mean, like you don't have
no
the
social security number.
You don't have something that would allow you to function with it, or like I said, because
you don't have the contact information, because right now you can send just to anyone so long as you know their handle. But you would actually need to find that handle. That could make sense.
I'm already seeing in chat people are like, this is you mentioned Tarkov. Anything from Tarkov is evil. I will not like Tarkov, and I want to use this as a solution to the whole. I want to play with my friends, but I am way far away, and it takes a bitch and a half time to try to actually get together and put all these things together. Having an option where you could just show up, hang out with your friend, and then log off for the day, and to reduce a lot of that friction of setting everything up. And I was just thinking of that as a solution.
Multiple ways
to do that.
To remove part of that friction. They don't remove all. There's no one thing that removes all of the friction. And depending on what your goals are, you choose. Do I want to do this instance content? Okay, I'm going to do this, and that way I can remove that point of friction, but I don't get all the benefits from it. Do I want to group up with my friends, in a different system to do, sandbox content, that's in the universe? Well, then I either need to do the out of game fast travel over a couple of days and plan ahead, or I need to, when my friends needs to give up an NPC that they paid for me to use and run that risk, and. You want to reduce that point of friction where if you do get down and you do get significant injuries or something like that, and you don't always have to have a medical ship, you can pay NPCs to do it, or if you're playing by yourself, there's those services, there's all these different ways to mitigate different types of friction within the game that we are experiencing right now.
There's
that
two things I would love to bring up along this line. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but I wanted to kind of
Oh, no,
get that in before I.
but that's what I'm saying is there is not a single point of friction.
Yeah.
It's multiple different points of friction.
Right.
We all experience them. We experience them differently, but it's about mitigating each one of those
Yes.
in a way that gives a player choice, but also pros versus cons.
Right.
But also each one of these things, I feel like is believable within what CIG is designing the game to be, but also within the lore. If you're just doing instance content, then you're just playing as a non-persistent character, some Joe Schmo in the universe, in order to experience that content and maybe get a smidgen of the reward. If you're doing the fast travel thing, well, that's something that they've been talking about for the game for ages. It's built at every landing zone.
They have terminals, for transports.
Crusader owns. Crusader is not only a ship manufacturer, but they're the UE Airlines essentially. That's a thing, and everybody runs right past it at every major landing zone because it isn't a part of the game, but they built it into the landing zones ages ago.
So
and for the medical stuff, there is so much lore about medical, and about NPC, paramedics, EMS, EMT type services that people just are blissfully unaware of because it's not a thing that CIG
It's not in the game.
really implemented.
Yeah, it's not in the game.
It's not in the game. But there are parts of it that could be cobbled together to make it a tier 0 part of the game for now as they build up towards what they want for tier for 1.0. But it's all these different things are things that CIG could probably implement with a bit more effort. We already have we're getting instance content. We just talked about that at CitizenCon. And we have in Arena Commander the ability to spawn at different points and select loadouts and stuff. Well, can they tie those two together so that way you don't have to be at that physical location to experience that content with your friends who might be at that location?
See, that takes away some of the challenge though, because Arena Commander is supposed to be a short-term rapid sim that has no long-term consequences. But here, there's two things that I wanted to interject that are both they're still along the lines of reducing friction, and one of them is specifically related to agent smithing, but as a counter to it.
Okay.
Instead of doing agent smithing, CIG already mentioned this, and they already mentioned it at CitizenCon, alternate character slots.
Yeah.
So hear me out. Instead of just relying on agent smithing so that you could potentially give somebody an unfair advantage because they didn't plan well. So in other words, they have a player that's equipped with poor NPCs, and you scrimped on how much you paid for them, so you got the lowest bottom of the barrel. No. You didn't spend the money to get the people who had the skills that were marketable. That's what I meant to say.
Because they're expensive and there's only so many of them.
But
they aren't available.
But it would be unfair though if you did that. If you only paid for the bottom of the barrel, and then all your friends suddenly who come in and they're all A players and they agent smith into those NPCs, you've now changed the game on the attackers
they're A
unfairly.
Players who don't have that skill progression that we're supposed to have for your characters.
Because
they only
now
have
you're not
the gear
relying
that
on
is
that.
available to you on that Polaris.
But let me. I think there's a presumption here that if you're doing the agent smithing, that you're in a turd or something like that. And maybe that's just me in my head. But like I was thinking that if you're going to be agent smithing in, you're only taking a role of an NPC on a ship, and you're not really a free player who can just go off and go do a mission with them. That's just my presumption. We actually haven't covered that. You know? But the whole point with the alternate character slots is the way that works is you can still have your main character that you play, and you go off and you do your own thing, and you can have its own equipment and gear that you really like. But say the org has a Polaris or an Idris that, on nights where you decide you're going to have group gameplay nights, you all decide to play the characters that are in the Idris. And that way you don't have to go through the setup. You're already on the Idris. You all log in, bed log into the Idris, and you can just take off there. I've actually done that with our org in the sense that we all went through and we had this contest where we gave away character slots, extra player slots. Extra player packages, so that we could do that we haven't really,
The idea you have a player
practiced with it
character,
very much.
you have a
Yeah.
player,
Well,
you have a player
but that's
character. I've heard
another
noobs
way,
discuss on
another
that.
option.
Yeah, but the idea is it's that if we could have alternate player slots, even if you had to pay extra for them or something like that, or pay a one-time fee for them, or get a limited number of them, that would solve all the problems. You wouldn't necessarily need offline travel or fast travel necessarily. You could basically keep them in a place where you're going to use them
solve
regularly.
the problem.
or-
It gives you a different option
Yes,
to
it's a
remove
different
that
option that's a little bit, and it's
Yeah.
probably easier for CIG to do because they don't have to invent the concept of agent smithing.
It's
You
also
don't have to worry about the restrictions and
Yeah.
the limitations or the unfair advantage that it might give to somebody.
And I was going to say that
Because-
the issue is with agent smithing, the fundamental issue with agent smithing is that it requires NPC crew. And we
Yeah.
know that NPC crew
Yeah.
is not going to be for 1.0, and this is going to be a problem at 1.0.
Yeah, yeah.
Because we
The
know how
alternate
long it
character player
takes.
slot
and beyond.
is probably
Yeah.
something
Yeah.
it could do for 1.0.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
I mean,
Which
we
is
could
where
easily
my
just
original idea came from.
you could even take the alternate character idea and combine it with my scav idea as the same kind of idea. 'Cause
Yeah.
that's effectively what I was saying is that you create an alternate character that is just poor. That is just randomized and
Not if they could make it completely non-persistent, I
Yeah.
think that would be more of a incentive to not see it as a pure replacement for your character actually
Yeah.
traveling somewhere.
When you say completely non-persistent, do you mean like in terms of like not
when you
having
log
the skill
out, you
development,
don't have
or-
access to the same character with its loot. When you log back in,
Oh.
you will
get
just get
another
a new
random-
same
Okay,
sort of
so
archetype,
just
but
for that
new
play
random.
session.
yeah,
Yes.
Okay, I see what you're saying. Gotcha.
that pure
No,
scav
that
style. Yeah.
works. Mhm.
So
There was one other thing I wanted to bring up with regard to reducing friction, and I've actually pro and con about it a little bit. The idea that if you
Well, that's the way it
that you
should
Yeah.
well you should be able to log off anywhere, and log back in exactly where you left off. Most
Yes.
MMOs these days do exactly that. Again, Ashes of Creation, A New World, a lot of the other like RPG MMO type things. You log out, you find a safe place to log out, you quit, and you come back the next day, you log back in, you're right where you left off. In Star Citizen, you risk losing your ship, you have to claim it, you have to log back in, you have to go back out to where you were, and that is one of the pieces that is, again, friction to getting people to want to play. I know for me right now, it keeps me from committing to a long-term gameplay session when I know I only have like an hour and a half to play. Like I know if I'm only going to be able to, I got to go to dinner here in like in an hour and a half or something like that, I'm not going to be able to go in and spend any time with my friends because I know I'm just going to wind up, getting stuck anyway. I think that's a good idea in principle, but even that doesn't come without risks to abuse. And an example to that would be contested zones. All right, say there's one of the missions in contested zone is the very end towards the executive hangar is you have to wait. You have to get into that asteroid base and wait for the hangar to be ready so you can insert your cards and get access to the hangar. And that's
And it's
part
timed.
of the gameplay. It's intentional.
Yeah, it's timed.
It's intentional. You have to be there to defend that location and resist the onslaught of people who want to, kick you out. If you something that you would have to work in around those mechanics is to make sure that people don't just like log off somewhere in that asteroid base, at a downtime, and then randomly decide to log back in during prime time at night and unfairly swarm people who are defending that base.
I mean, CIG already had that solution, which was the way you save where you are is stay in a bed, like having a bed so that But you don't want to.
You still.
Yeah.
I think the issue is that the distance between the bed and where you might have been is still so great that it makes it frictional, to log back in and resume what you were doing that night. So say if I was exploring on a planet or something like that, and too far from my ship or something like that. There are a number of different scenarios where it still makes it too hard to just pick up and leave, where you left off.
Well, and that is exactly one of the things that I think when CIG was talking about how the idea behind bed logging has changed. I think that's one of the reasons why they were thinking about how bed logging has changed.
Yeah.
Because they know that they need some kind of way of players being able to save progress, even if they're not at a ship, you know?
Yeah.
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 Well, and like I think that's fine. And you bring up a good point. Like you shouldn't be able to just pitch your space tent anywhere.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the vast majority of places you should be able to log out. But if you're in the middle of a hostile area,
Mhm.
Yeah.
like you
You can't just log out in a CZ, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can't just
right.
log out. You have to back out and then pitch your tent here, or go back to your ship bed or whatever. But it's, I
guess they could use
I think that's
markup for
an
that.
easy. Well, it's an easy thing for them to do because we have zones already where
Yeah.
you can engage in combat. And so okay, you can't utilize this function, unless you are in this zone, and then you can
Yeah.
log out. You can log out here, but not there. And
that's
it
not
applies to
That's also not a lore.
95% of the game area.
They don't have to explain that in lore. It's just game systems. Like it just let
Yeah.
sometimes you don't need to explain to CIG. Sometimes it just needs to be a game system because it's a game.
Yeah. Hold on, Ninetales. I'm kind of tired. It's 11 o'clock my time. I'm gonna go lie down here in the corner. I'll wake up here tomorrow morning.
No, then again, one solution could be like when you log in, like an NPC AI takes over your body and tries to get out of, to the nearest spawn closet, basically, where they just walk in and despawn, and then when you log back in, you basically just walk out of that spawn closet, the closest one. And if for some reason, the hostile NPCs prevent you from doing that,
Yeah.
tough cookie.
Yeah. I mean,
I
there's
just know that when they first implement that, you're going to not spawn with your gear, and you're going to be in your your noob suit or something. It's just you're gonna walk out, and there's gonna be a bunch of people, and they turn around, and everybody's pointing their guns at you, and you're wearing nothing but your
The sperm
hospital
suit?
gown because
Yeah.
No,
you spawned incorrectly.
you would wake up. No, you would wake up in
Yeah.
the hospital. But if the game taking over your character successfully gets to a spawn closet, then everything is fine.
Mhm.
It's like someone was mentioning before, either it was already on the podcast or still on the stream. Like the GTA 5 has a similar system where when you switch characters, the game basically controls the other characters and they do stuff, and then when you switch back, you're basically in coming out of a spawn closet, whether it's at your safe house or for Franklin it could be the weed shop, for Trevor it's the strip club, etc. So it's not unheard of. It could happen. And then because I am a fan of there being like in lore explanations, or not just it's a game, you can't do that. It's kind of in most cases I would prefer to avoid that.
Mhm.
I know in some cases you just have to, but in most cases I would prefer to avoid that and have there be like a smooth immersive solution to the problem, if at all possible.
there are solutions to the problem that CIG can get to, but I think the big thing that I wanted to kind of talk about with this was that I think CIG needs to start looking at these problems now, because they're not a problem when you have Pyro and Stanton. Like it's not that much of an issue. Like you log out in Pyro and your friends in Stanton, and you go to do a mission in Stanton. Like you like, oh, no one's at this Align in Mind station, at the Hathor station. We got time. Let's go. Like, okay, cool. It'll take you like 20 minutes to get through the jump point and then out to that location. It's not that much of an issue. But when in the future you have something like, I just found a massive rock of Quantanium, in this area, and we have like 20 minutes before this thing goes up. I need you to help me out. A way that you can get there to help them in a short-term manner that was enjoyed, that encourages gameplay, encourages people playing with each other, hanging out, doing those things. Because right now, the systems as they're set up actively fight against you playing together. don't play with each other, because it's harder to do setups and do that
They
than it
fight
is
you
to do
playing
that.
together, which is the thing that we hate.
Yes.
But they also make it so players are not playing the game and playing the content and providing feedback, which is what CIG, the CIG needs engagement. They need people playing and testing stuff. And if everybody is testing, spending 90% of the time testing 10% of the game, which is just getting set up and getting to your ship and then getting to where the mission is, and that fails a certain percentage of the time, that it if CIG wants better data on how to fix the actual gameplay and make it better, they need to remove the friction points, and not remove them, but mitigate them to an extent.
Reduce them.
Yeah.
Yeah, reduce that.
You
They
don't
need
want to make it
spray a
just so
little
easy
Pam
that there's no
on there.
challenge.
Yeah.
Right.
A little bit of
little
WD-40.
Crisco.
A little friction goes a long way, as most of us know. You need a little friction.
Yeah, we can't
makes it feel better.
We don't need
Makes it more rewarding.
Yeah.
Makes it a more enjoyable process.
But if you have too much friction, it isn't fun and no one's happy. But it's got to be
what is the
right.
correct amount of lube? Is what we're asking.
All right, wait. Did we start the After Dark?
We're not even there yet, but I do. Let's do a last little thoughts, because we think we've talked about this enough. But because I already gave my answer. Tree, are there any other things you can think of that that maybe don't specifically relate to anything we talked about, that might be ways that CIG could reduce friction for the game, not just players playing together, but in general the game?
I mean, we talked about and this is all cohesive. Making the game more stable. They're working on that right now. We've got item recovery tier 0. That's that's mitigating friction at one point in the game a little bit. We've talked about like a tier 0 NPC medical systems, that allow you to not have to just always end up back at the hospital. We talked about an offline fast travel, which I think could be really great and probably very easy for CIG to implement. Not fast travel like medium speed travel. I don't know.
Offline travel. It's just offline travel.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, offline travel. A lot of things that are big bang for buck. Not a huge ask for CIG to implement, even in a low enough level that removes a lot of the friction that gets players to being able to enjoy game with friends, and moving that time, that time block where more of it is spent on the part that you want and less of it is spent on the part that you don't. And I think the only other thing, and chat was bringing up, we talked about it, beds a little bit, but the bed logging, it doesn't have to be removing bed logging at all. I love bed logging. I think bed logging is a good friction thing in order to give people benefits, because we have the actor status system, and if you log out in a bed, just changes what your actor status is when you log back in.
Yeah,
that's a huge
giving some benefits
thing.
right.
You don't get thirsty as quickly.
You wake up well rested.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Unless you're not Drake, because those cots are just
yeah, it's a mattress this thick, and with tier 1 crafting, congratulations, all you have to do is have this thing that's reusable. It takes up this much space in a backpack, and if you wear a backpack, you can fit it in there. You lose the item space, and now you can craft your bedroll, and that will allow you to wake up with a certain amount of rested, based off of your environment or something like that.
Should resting like that heal damage health, not wounds, but just
the tier, or no,
not the wounds, but just the percentage.
Right. Yeah, I get you. I agree. I think a little bit. Sure.
A good example of that in a somewhat hardcore game is Kingdom Come Deliverance. When you rest in a bed and you get your health back, and a lot of statuses get removed from you if you rest in the bed. So, and if you don't rest,
it's not going to fix a broken leg, but tiredness, stamina recovery.
It's time based. Yeah. Stamina. Like, okay, sweet. You can't sprint for as long, and you get fatigued more easily. Like, those are real tangible things that affect your gameplay, especially if you're doing combat gameplay, and again, it makes the game believable. Like, holy
Right.
crap, if I don't sleep in my actual bed here in my house in real life at 40 years old, I am fucking useless.
Yeah. I just
like
swapped out a bed. My wife and I had this bed since we moved into our house about 5 years ago, and we finally got rid of it and gotten a new bed. And it's like, I don't know how I slept on that old bed. This new bed is so much nicer, So I get it. I get it.
Yeah, but that's also a point of it should be a point of friction, because if you log out right now, it makes you wake up, way far away, and you have to do the whole thing over again.
Mhm.
And even with the improved quantum travel, and I'm one of those people that thinks that's coming this year, but even with that coming in, that only reduces a part of the time of getting back to that thing where it
Yeah.
shouldn't even be there. Because how did
Yeah.
you magic back to
Right.
um,
Right.
a hotel room on the other side of the system,
Right.
as soon as you logged off? Like, that's less
I mean,
believable than just waking up and your bones hurt.
it's a noble idea, but the problem is it still doesn't solve it's the friction point, is because it's typically far away from where you were. This is a very big universe, and it's very easy to just, if you want to consume, it's the problem we're looking at with reducing friction is the time it takes to play. And if it's going to take you that much longer just to get back to where you were, that is a deterrent to playing,
Yeah, and the someone brought up neutering medical gameplay, and like, no, if you log out for 5 minutes and log back in, no, it's not going to affect your health on your character. But if you log out and then 2 days later you log back in, okay, sweet, you recovered 15 points of health.
Mhm.
And your stamina is recovered or whatever. So
But
that way you can.
but to play the devil's advocate, then your hydration and food should also go down if
Yes.
you're getting health benefits. So like if you don't play for a month, you should come back to a skeleton.
You should be dead.
Well,
Yeah.
that's not going to work.
I don't want
No,
I don't want you
exactly.
to come back to a skeleton, but I do feel like you should have and that could be a thing, where okay, you can make this choice, but when you log back in, you're going to need to find some water pretty soon.
Yeah, you
and
could be
some
just
food
like
pretty-
immediately at a deficit or thirsty or hungry
Yeah.
or something.
Yeah. Like below 30 when the warnings start showing up.
Andy,
Yeah.
anything you can think that would that we haven't talked about yet that it would reduce friction in the game long term?
I mean, I'm sure there probably is if I thought about it a little bit more. A lot of these things kind of pop up when you're playing, and it's like, well, crap, why didn't, the big thing here, and I've seen other people in here, we were talking about it in chat a little bit. It is a game. There's got to be a challenge to it.
Yeah.
But the issue that I think we're all trying to talk about tonight is not the game and the challenge, but the deterrent.
Mhm.
The parts of the game that make you not want to play because they aren't enjoyable. And there's no way to enjoy it. So like the issues of taking too long to get set up. I've got 4 hours to play, but half that time was taken up just getting up with my friends and all that. I think Tree has kind of nailed it. We've all kind of talked about it tonight. There's no one big solution. There's a bunch of little problems that need to be solved.
Mhm.
And I think the tier 0 item recovery is one aspect of those things. But I just hope. My thought is that hopefully CIG doesn't lose sight of these other options that are still viable, that are still reasonably, some of them are not as hard as others might be to implement. And I think they're going to be needed because they've got to find a better balance between making the game challenging, but making it to the point where they drive users away. And there was one other thing that I thought of here that somebody told me to mention or somebody brought up at one point, and it just slipped my mind while I was talking here.
All right, we'll come back to you in a moment.
Yeah.
Because what I will say is that Tree and I have said this thing for a long time, that the real Star Citizen is secretly a logistics game. It's always a logistics game. Yeah. It's all about logistics and that sort of practice. But logistics,
and that's not bad.
No, logistics is fine, but logistics is boring. Unless there's a gameplay loop of how to get logistics properly or a way to make that logistics faster and more interesting. That is really what these sorts of removing friction, a lot of this stuff is just trying to make logistics less of a hassle for everyone involved, to make it so that the challenge and the gameplay is, I'm mining, I'm refining, I'm base building, I'm crafting,
Right.
I'm shooting people, I'm smuggling, I'm trading goods, I'm doing scientific research. That's what people come to play the game for. They don't come to play the game to buy 15 boxes,
Right.
sort those boxes with all the materials they need, load up the boxes, get into your ship, and then take off. And it's 2 hours later
You know
because
what?
you had to deal with all that.
Even those steps are not that bad. It's just not having to do them every single gameplay session.
Exactly. Yeah.
I remembered what it was. It was I just forgot again. It was
It's because you didn't log out into bed,
probably it was
or you logged out in someone else's bed. Ooh.
God damn it! It was right there. Ugh.
All right,
We're talking about
give me a second to
logistics.
think.
Yeah.
Let's try it again. Let's try it again. Go ahead, Darsh. You go ahead.
Go ahead, Gersh.
Yeah. So the only one that I could think of is like for basic items, stuff that you can just walk into a shop, an online store in the Mobigless.
Oh, yeah.
Just I would pay a bit more and wait a bit, but have it delivered straight into my inventory instead of having to roam around the universe finding the exact shop that has the size 2 suppressor, because oh my god, having to rely on the finder and then having to travel across the system just to find a basic item
Mhm.
is bullshit.
And
And CIG needs to learn that.
yeah, and the thing is that's easily
Yeah,
balanced.
Space Amazon, yeah.
That's easily balanced with crafting, because a basic suppressor is a basic suppressor. It should be easy to get. The thing that people would want is like, well, now this basic suppressor I've upgraded to tier 5, and it is this glorious thing that was whisper quiet. No one can hear me when I when it shoots, and it emits a puff of perfume, so I smell good every time I shoot it or whatever. Like, you know,
Yeah,
that,
exactly.
that special snowflake thing. If you lose it, well, fuck, I gotta do that whole thing again and fix it up again. But like, you should still be able to get that size 1 suppressor easily to get that process.
So exactly as it is in the stores, but just remove some of the friction of having to gather all that.
Travel.
You know, I just want to go to my Mobigless and say buy 10 suppressors, and then either in an hour or the next play session, it's in my inventory.
Yeah, and then you can go
Without
do something
having to
else
travel.
and prepare for something else,
Yeah.
and then it's like, oh, there it is, ready to go.
I
good
would
to go.
I would pay like 50% more because
Mhm.
you know, for low cost items. For ships, okay, maybe you know, maybe you don't want to pay 500,000 or 2 million more, just you know, for the convenience of having of having it delivered. You know, I would travel, you know, for
Mhm.
that. But for basic bitch items, yeah, just give me an online shop, please.
Oh,
Got it.
social tools. Yes.
Yes.
Fuck. Why
There
was
we
that
go.
so hard to remember? The social tools would absolutely help make getting set up a little bit easier. Being able to find your friends, know where they are. The stuff that they showed at CitizenCon was really cool, and I hope they've actually made some progress on developing it.
They
you know,
talked about it recently in the last monthly report. They mentioned the social tools
Yeah.
they were working on it. So
Yeah, they would definitely help. It is one of the many pieces that we've talked about tonight with regard to reducing friction that would make it a little bit easier. Just being able to have better party tools and you know, recognition of where your friends are, all those little things. It's probably not as big as some of the other stuff we talked about, but it would absolutely go, you know, part and parcel with everything we talked about tonight.
yeah. All
I'm
right.
glad I remembered that because I was going to go to bed pissed.
That's.
But
I
then you
mean,
wake up
up
at
well
3 o'clock
rested,
in the
and you
morning and try to
remember.
call everybody. and tell them,
I think what we've all pointed out is that there's a lot of things that CIG already has in. There's a lot of things they're working on right now to improve this, and it's definitely one of the. I feel like this is one of the goals of this year is to create these sorts of systems to make it a little bit easier to reduce this friction, because they seem to acknowledge that these problems are part of the reason why people get frustrated with the game and quit. Is that whole like,
yeah.
you know, I spent 2 hours getting everything set up with my friends, and then a bug killed us, and then it just became, you know, but that's a problem. But it's also I spent 2 hours getting all this stuff together, and then like when I log back in the next day, all of our stuff has been removed from a ship because whatever, you know, it's or because. You know, or we
90
have to
minutes of
transport
prep
all
just
the
to
way
fall
back.
to a planet.
Yeah.
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 I think you've basically
Multiple
just
points
said
of
that the bugs
friction
are the priority
need
to
multiple
fix.
points of friction removal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The bugs are the priority friction point for everybody.
Yes.
And all of these other features have to kind of come in after those bugs have been resolved.
Yeah. All right. I think that's we're going to wrap up this discussion. We'll move on to the question and answer session. Thank you to Darj, Andy, and Tree for coming and joining us. Make sure you check out jrdf.sc and sign up for the newsletter there. It comes out and get yourself your Raven. And also,
I'm making so many short links. It's jrdf.sc/newsletter. It's jrdf.sc/raven. jrdf.sc/EU to see our EU stock, and also US to see US stock. It's like so many short URLs.
So nice. CIG could take a hint from from this, please, CIG. Well, I guess they do. They have playsc.com or whatever it is. So.
And well, they don't have StarCitizen.com because someone's squatting it.
Yes. And Andy, My Radar, right? On
My Radar.
On most apps.
It's a free app.
It's a free app.
You don't have to pay for it. Go grab it, and it's very good if I do say so myself, and I can say that because I didn't write it, other people did.
I use it frequently. We had a lot of rainstorms recently here in Texas, and it was always routinely like rain's going to start here in the next few minutes, stop here in the next few minutes, and it will always beat Google out almost entirely. So, of course, everyone's going to ask the same question, which is when CIG adds weather patterns, when are we going to see the My Radar app in Star Citizen? When are we going to see the My Radar Mobiglass?
I would love to do it. There were conversations, but yeah, they
and
have.
You wouldn't even have to create predictions, with fancy algorithms like you do for real weather. You would just, tag into the code that actually just drives the weather and be able to say what's coming.
I have to say I'm impressed with their weather systems. The stuff they demoed at CitizenCon looks really cool, and they did a really good job with it. And I can't wait to see it in the game. I can't wait to show it in an app someday.
Yeah. And lastly, youtube.com/@tree0311 and twitch.tv/tree0311, right?
Yep. And my Discord is always open. So we're very active in the Discord, and lots of good conversations, lots of good fun people to play with. We play Star Citizen, but also play other co-op and other space games and stuff. So if you like that kind of nerd stuff, come hang out.
I forgot to mention, I have somebody who specifically requested to come onto the captain's table, who wanted to talk about Star Citizen and maybe a little bit of Helldivers too. And I was like, the person, and they're a Marine, and I was like, the person who I would bring on to talk to another Marine is the person who also likes Helldivers and Star Citizen. So I have to get you two on together at some point. It's maybe in May or something like that, Tree. So
I need to play Helldivers again. It's been too long.
It's so good. They're the latest update is so much better.
Is it the certain reactor?
Yes, it's that reactor.
Have they contact? Yeah,
yes.
Cool. Yeah.
They reached out to me for that one.
Oh, yep, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Not gonna spoil, but everybody knows who we're talking about.
Well, I'll talk about him. His Warrior Humble is his name.
Warrior Humble. Yeah.
And he does React content, but he's been reacting to like Star Citizen content for a little bit, and he's a Marine who went from an enlisted member to an officer, and he's going through training through officer training right now, or finishing up his officer training right now. So. Related to Garmin Humble, maybe. he unwittingly is been added to the game already.
Well, you'll have to ask him what his favorite burrito is.
Yes,
after a finished mission.
A finished mission. Mm-hmm. We'll have to introduce him to Garmin Humble if he hasn't already. Actually, I'll send him that message.
I think he has. Yeah.
Make sure
he's run out of official Star Citizen videos, so he actually went on to reacting to the Astropub stuff.
Yeah, my lore videos. It was cool. Thank you for watching, y'all. If you did enjoy this, we do this live on Saturdays at twitch.tv/theastropub and youtube.com/ at the Captain's Table podcast. If you're watching this after the fact on the YouTube, make sure you subscribe. We are on our way to 1,000 subscribers on YouTube. For those of you who don't know, YouTube does not promote videos unless those videos are made by creators who already have monetization, because if they have monetization, they can monetize it, so they promote those videos more often. So if you have seen this video and have been like, Paul hasn't made a lot of Captain's Table podcast recently, it's because we moved over to the new channel, and we're slowly working our way up. The algorithm is sort of pulling it out to where it needs to be, but we need to get to that point so I can be more prolific. More people can who used to see it can actually see this. So please do help us out if you haven't already done. Hit that subscribe button. Listen to us on Spotify and a lot of other like Apple Podcasts and Google Podcasts and stuff like that. It's all over there as well. Make sure you subscribe to us there. And like I say every time, hope to see you someday in the black.